صدای من دارید؟
بله.
خب الحمدلله. خب شروع کنیم.
بله.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحیم. لا حول ولا قوة الا بالله العلی العظیم. الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين أجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف. اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم. اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. As you remember, we started studying the foundations for law. And we said this is different from the discussion about resources for law. So we have manabi' huquq and we have mabani huquq. Manabi' huquq are the resources. We talked what are our resources. Mabani means foundations. So we started talking about this and we said that in some legal systems their ultimate end is human felicity or happiness in this world. Or you could say social happiness in this world. Because law aims at securing happiness in our social life. We said we accept this, but we say this is not our ultimate end. Because it's not that only this world matters to us. For us, the ultimate end is nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we believe that social happiness helps in this process. So it's not that we ignore happiness in this world, whether it be personal or social. No, it's very important. And we have to work hard so that we can have social felicity, but it's not the ultimate end. So this is one point that we discussed before. Now, the question is how we can achieve social happiness, or what do you mean by social happiness? Because social happiness is a very general concept. We need to have some understanding. Many things have to come together so that we can abstract this concept and say we have social happiness. Okay, so there are some universal concepts, but which are more specific than social happiness. When they come together, we have achieved social happiness. And those are like the elements or like the factors or those things that contribute to having social happiness. So Ayat Misbah says that in every legal system, the legislators or lawmakers consider a series of masalih kulli, a series of general interests, and then they say, if you have these, then you have social happiness. And they try to lay from foundations and then the rest of legal system in the way that can help us achieve these interests These general interests are called mabani huquq, foundations of law. Okay, now you may ask, what are these general interests? He says different schools have different ideas, but for example, among common things, one is establishing justice. Justice is different from social happiness, but justice is one of the things that contributes to having social happiness or sa'ada al-ijtimai. If you don't have justice, how can you have happiness in society? Another thing is to have order. If there is anarchy, if there is chaos, if there is no security, then there is no social happiness. So order, security are also important. In addition to justice, order, and security, also welfare. Welfare is very important. People should have access to job. People should have access to education. People should be able to, have accommodation. To buy or to rent is not the main thing, but to be able to have, reasonable accommodation, healthy water, health service. These are different aspects of welfare, which are very important. In addition to security and welfare, I want to highlight also something which we need to really pay attention to it. Sometimes you have security and you have also your basic needs, but you don't have peace of mind. You don't feel comfortable. I don't know, have you heard this story that there was a king who was asking people that I have a sheep, and this sheep you have to feed, but make sure that it doesn't put on extra weight. So the weight should not increase, but you should also keep feeding. You cannot, feed little so that it becomes thin. So when people were trying to get, this great, gift from the king, some were overfeeding and the sheep was becoming heavier. Some were not feeding enough and the sheep was losing weight. Then one person said, I can solve the problem. He kept feeding the sheep a lot so that doesn't lose the weight, but was using a method, a technique, that the sheep was not putting extra weight. The king was surprised and said, what do you do? He said, I feed the sheep properly, but every now and sudden I show the head of a wolf. So this poor sheep then loses weight out of fear. So sometimes in society there is welfare, there is security, no one is killing you, but you are always living under threat. There's always fear. This is also not making life very happy. So this is why in Islam the concept of amn or security is much more than physical security. For example, if people backbite you or accuse you falsely, they are damaging your amn, your security, but not physical security, because they didn't kill you, they didn't injure you. But when they damage your reputation, or when they annoy you, or when they humiliate you, This damages Islamic understanding of amn. Al-Muslimu man salum al-Muslimun min yadihi wal lisanihi. So anyway, these are different elements that contribute to having social happiness. Justice, order, security, welfare, these are all important. Also, progress in culture and civilization. We need schools, we need universities, we need roads, we need bridges, we need telecommunication, etc. So, are these things by themselves inside law? No. They are outside the boundaries of law, but they are like foundations for law. Law depends on this. We cannot say that we need to establish justice or we need to have order. These are laws. No, these are prior to having laws. These are your basis, your foundations. And people may accept, which normally they do. Maybe some people, say, no, we want to achieve something else. Then that's different. So, Ayat Misbah says, every foundation of the foundation, every one of the foundations of law is indeed an interest that if you act upon the laws and regulations of that society, you can achieve. هر یک از مبانی حقوق مصلحتی است که بر عمل به مقتضای یک دسته از احکام و قواعد حقوقی مترتب می شود. So it's an interest that you can secure if you act upon some of the rules. For example, some rules may help with security, some may help with welfare, some may help with justice, some may help with more than one, but these are the foundations. If we want to use the language of usul al-fiqh, if you want to use a more common terminology, instead of mabani huquq or foundations of law, we can say milakhay ahkam huquqi, criteria for legal rulings. What are the criteria? We believe that all rulings, including legal rulings of Islam, because some are personal about acts of worship, etc., but those which have legal nature, we believe all rulings depend on real interests and harms. Al-ahkam tabi'atun lil-masalih wal-mafasid al-waqi'iyyatayn. Yeah? So, either we want to secure interest or we want to avoid harm. Then you know that we have discussed this many times in usul al-fiqh. That, for example, if maslaha is something without which you cannot achieve happiness, then it would be compelling, it would be mulzima, the binding. If it is something without which still you can achieve, but maybe lower or later it slows down or reduces, then it's غير mulzima, like mustahabbat. Mafsada is also sometimes so harmful that it would block the way to salvation and perfection. Then we call it mafsadiyya mufawwitah, becomes haram. Sometimes mafsadiyya غير mufawwitah, becomes makruh. So in any case, all the rulings, including legal rulings, are based on real interest and harm, and they serve reaching those mabani that we mentioned, which contribute to having social justice, social happiness, which includes justice, order, welfare, security, progress in civilization and culture, etc. What's the benefit of this discussion? Because some people may say, and actually some people have said, this is not beneficial. Why we should talk about these things? We just, decide what is good to implement and make laws, etc. One of the benefits of this discussion is, please listen very carefully, one of the practical benefits of this discussion is that sometimes law is silent, or at least we have not received any guidance, okay? And you as a judge or as a ruler maybe also, you don't know what to do. It's neither mentioned that you should do or you should not do. It's silent. If you know foundations of law, it may help you to judge according to those foundations. This is why, sometimes they say the judge may issue a verdict based on the spirit of law, ruh qanun. For example, we know that we need to work for justice, and we see that we don't have anything specific here, but justice requires certain ruling, certain verdict, okay, or order, for example, etc. Ayat Misbah says also knowing foundations of law can help a jurist, can help faqih and mujtahid. How? He says, for example, if faqih finds out what is the decisive cause of the ruling, illa, not falsafiya hukm, illat hukm, you know the difference. If you know illa, the cause for the hukm, you can always extend to similar cases. Yeah, we say in usul al-fiqh, al-illatu mu'ammimatun aw mukhassasa. Yeah, al-illatu mu'ammimatun aw mukhassasa. For example, if the doctor says لا تأكل الرمان لأنه حامض, don't eat pomegranate because it is sour. So if pomegranate is sweet, no problem. Or if there is lemon which is sour, it has problem. So illa can extend to similar cases and can exclude similar cases which are not sharing this cause. So faqih, by finding out the decisive cause of the rulings, might be able to extend it to similar cases. Or, although Ayatollah Misbah has not mentioned this, but I think he would be happy, that or can be restricted. For example, if we are sure that this issue is against justice and we have no guidance here, there's nothing specific, we know it's against justice, I think even here faqih can benefit from knowing mabani hukuk. The problem is, it's not easy to define these foundations. Let me read for you these few lines. دانستن مبانی حقوق برای فقیه هم میتواند مشکل گشا و کارساز باشد. In addition to the judges, for jurists also to know foundations of law can be helpful. مثلا فقیه میتواند برای پی بردن به علت قطعی حکم و سپس سرایت دادن آن به موارد مشابه از مبانی حقوق کمک بگیرد. For example, a jurist, in order to identify what is the decisive cause of the ruling and then extended it to similar cases, this is not qiyas, because qiyas is when you don't have certainty. When you know the illa, just tanqih manat, you can extend it to everywhere that cause is there. So faqih for this can benefit from mabani huquq, from foundations of law. And I said also for takhsis, for restriction, because al-illatu mu'ammimatun aw mukhassasa. اما مشکل این است که تعیین این مبادی به سادگی و آسانی امکان پذیر نیست و هیچ یک از اصولیون و فقهای ما به بررسی مبانی حقوق اسلام نپرداختند، هرچند در ضمن بحث ها اشاراتی به آنها کردند. The problem is that it's not easy to identify these foundations, and our scholars of fiqh and usulul fiqh have not independently discussed the issue of foundations of Islamic law. Although they have discussion in different places, but they have not independently brought all the issues related to mabani huquq Islami in one place. And one of the problems is also that because this is law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is not law of a man or a parliament, it's law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For faqih is very difficult to say I understand everything about this law. Yeah, it's very difficult to faqih say that I have exhausted everything about this law and then I can extend it to similar cases or exclude cases which are not serving the same purpose. It's very difficult for a faqih to become 100% sure. But anyway, it's a helpful discussion. Now, the next topic is, after talking about foundations of law, is about validity of law and value of law. How a law becomes valid and legitimate. Ayat Misbah says this is one of the most controversial questions. Not in law, in the whole human knowledge. یکی از پیچیده ترین و جدال برانگیزترین مسائل این حوزه از معرفت بشری است. Or maybe at least in this field, in this area of law and Sharia, etc. What is making a law legitimate or valid or effective? And he says we can say that the whole controversy goes back to a basic question. What is the basic question here? The basic question is, are laws that we have in our society or any society based on realities and facts, or they are just based on commands and instructions. You remember, some of you, we had falsafa akhlaq together. So one of the things was that whether ethical judgments are ikhbari or insha'i, are they statements or they are just made by initiation of an instructor or commander. We had this discussion in falsafa akhlaq. Similar discussion is here. Are these laws based on realities, and then the task for lawmaker is to discover, is kashf, is to discover what serves those realities? Or there is no reality here, just we need someone to have authority and tell us what to do, what not to do, without being concerned about the reality. Some people believe that there is reality here, and they themselves have different views. For example, among those who say laws are based on reality, you can refer to the people who believe in natural law. We discussed also this, alhamdulillah, in this class. So they say, in the same way that doctors, for example, based on the way our body runs, can tell us you have become ill, you need to avoid eating this food, or you need to take this medicine or this vitamin, etc. Doctors are not legislating, are not issuing commands or prohibitions. They are not doing anything insha'i. It's ikhbari. They are just issuing statements which are based on their understanding of reality. Maybe a doctor makes mistake. We can say, your prescription is wrong. It didn't help me. It made me even worse. Why? Because there's a reality we can check. Those who believe in natural law, they say in similar way that we have laws for body, we have laws for society, which is based on nature, the way God has created this world, this in nature. And we can say, for example, if you do this, it's compatible with the nature and you would benefit from this. So some people believe in natural law theory. Some people say, no, it's not based on the nature. It's like like intellectual law, intellectual regulations. If you remember, in logic, in philosophy, we said we have theoretical intellect and practical intellect. Aql nazari and aql amali. Aql amali, practical intellect, is the basis for what to do. Theoretical intellect tells us what is and what it is not. In the past, they used to say practical intellect or wisdom relates to siyasat mudun, tadbir manzil, and akhlaq, about politics, economics of home, and ethics. Anything that says what to do, what not to do, is about practical wisdom or practical intellect. And then, in both of them, there are badihiyat and nazariyat. There are things which are self-evident, and there are things which are derived from those self-evident judgments. So some people say law is based on intellectual rules of practical wisdom. So it's aql. So it's not that you can easily find things in the nature. You remember we discussed about this You cannot easily find your answer in the nature, but with your aql and using badiyat aql amali, you can understand what is good, what is bad, what is right, what is wrong, based on the facts, what facts which are available for aql. The third view among those who say laws are based on reality are those who have religious attitude. Not that every religious person is like this. We may have some reservations, but some people have developed this as a religious or as a divine law, and they say it is true that some of the laws can be based on facts in the nature, and also human intellect has some practical laws and instructions that can help. So they accept the first and the second to some extent, but they say because God has created this nature and God has established this cause and effect system, and God has given us intellect and decided how our intellect functions, therefore everything in the end goes back to God. So instead of saying natural law or intellectual law, we say religious or theistic law. So Ayat Misbah says, as you can see, the third is not very much independent from the first two. It's a kind of synthesis, a combination of the first and the second. In any way, what is common among these three, and maybe there are similar other systems, is that they say there is a basis. What kind of basis is different? You can use nafsul amr. There are some realities in nafsul amr that law is based on them. According to these people, then law become part of hikmah, wisdom, part of philosophy. Anyway, it becomes a real science because you want to discover the realities. There is a second attitude which maybe has more followers among philosophers of law, and they deny that there is any reality or waqiyyat nafsul amri for law. They deny that, and they say we should not think law is like philosophy or physics or chemistry. Law is based on legislation in the form of commanding, in the form of insha. You take initiative to ask people what to do, what not to do, either because you are a king or you are selected or elected by people, or for example, God has authority to do so based on different theories. According to these people, they are different. Some of them say it's just insha. And in logic we say insha la yahtamilu as-sidqa wal-kadhb, does not admit truth or falsehood. If someone says give me money, you cannot say this is true or false. Even if he has lots of money and says give me money, you cannot say this is false, because he didn't say I don't have money. He said give me money. It's not true or false. In insha, what we can do, the maximum, is to say whether it is compatible with maslaha or not. We should look for masalih and mafasid. We cannot say it's real or it's not real, it's true or false. So they say حقوق. Some people say حقوق is just insha, but the lawmakers should make sure that their instructions help the society to have social happiness. So we can check. You see, sometimes they change the law. They see this legislation didn't help, they change it. We say there is a basis, there's a reality for this, and if you miss it, you have to change it. They may not accept this. They say, no, we just look at the result. I tell you, do this. It's, like saying, for example, a doctor says, do this without knowing what is happening in the world. And just say, do this. If it worked, it worked. If it didn't work, it changes the medicine. No. Law is not like this. Among people that don't believe in واقعیت نفس الامر, they believe that there is no reality, any form of reality, in نفس الامر, as we call it in philosophy. There is no reality at all. For law are positivists and those who have historical approach. What is our position? He says, we believe that there is a middle position. Neither we should deny realities, nor we should deny insha and i'tibar, that there is something as instruction, as commanding, as asking to implement the law. We need both sides. We need a balanced position. Certainly, laws are based on masalih and mafasid and have impact. For anything, you need to consider, why we need to collect data, why we need to sometimes, do survey in order to make a law. Because there is a reality. We should find out what is the situation and what can help. On the basis of the best information available, best, experiences, best consultation, then we can make a law, but human law can always be subject to change, because then we try it, it may not work. We may need to revise it. But we need to consider realities. On the other hand, to say that there is no insha at all, there is no i'tibar at all, this is also wrong. Because, for example, you are familiar in ilm usul, we say that sometimes something can have a basis in reality, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may not have yet asked us to implement. For example, Islamic rulings were gradually introduced. Some of the rulings were introduced in Medina. Didn't these rulings relate to the realities in Mecca, for example, or before they were legislated? For example, if Salat was legislated at a certain time, or Salatul Jama'ah, or Zakat, etc., prohibition of drinking alcohol, prohibition of usury. So realities were there. Interest and harm were there. But before Allah asks to implement, they don't become munajjaz. They don't become effective. Of course, here maybe someone says, even to effectively say do something, it's made based on maslahah. We have general maslahah in salat, in zakat, in prohibition of riba, but there is maslahah also in the time of announcement. Wisdom requires to announce these rulings gradually. If all the rulings were made in the first day of proclamation of Islam, was not wise. People had to be prepared little by little. So if we consider these also types of maslahah, then we can say when something has full maslahah, actual command comes. So there is sha'ni and fi'li. Sha'ni was there, means it had the potential of being asked, but actually being asked needed certain time, certain circumstances. So we believe in the role of realities as the basis, which is the main thing, but also we have to listen to the commands and prohibitions, instructions coming from Shari' Muqaddas, from the holy legislator, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ayat Misbah also refers to what we have in theology, in Islamic science of kalam, which also sometimes in usul al-fiqh we discuss. Al-wajibat al-shar'iyyah al-tafun fil-wajibat al-aqliyyah, or maybe they say irshadatun ila al-wajibat al-aqliyyah. Wajibat al-aqliyyah are those things that we understand by our aql. For example, why I should inquire about religion? This is wajib aqli, because aql says you must find out if there is a person who has blessed you with your life, etc., and then thank him if he is there. Wujub shukr al-mun'im is wajibun aqli, is an intellectual obligation to thank those who have blessed you. You have to find out, are you created by chance or you are created by someone so that you owe him gratitude? So, wajibat aqli and wajibat shari. Ulama say, al-wajibat al-shar'iyya al-tafun fil-wajibat al-aqliyya. Religious obligations are favors so that we can understand intellectual obligations. They help us in understanding. If we had knowledge and wisdom, we ourselves would be able to understand everything as Allah said. Because everything that He says is based on knowledge and wisdom in consideration of the facts. If you know the facts, so you have knowledge about the facts, and you have wisdom to know how you can use these facts to reach your aim, you will come to the same conclusion. We either don't have knowledge, or we don't have wisdom, or we don't have both. This is why we have to learn. Otherwise, we could come to the same conclusion. Ayatollah Misbah says, اگر عقل آدمیان قدرت و کفایت شناخت و تمییز مصالح و مفاسد واقعی را می داشت, if human intellect had the ability to know, recognize and distinguish real interest and harm, then would have been able to understand نماز، روزه، حج، زکات و دیگر واجبات شرعی چه تأثیر مثبتی در استکمال نفوس و نیل به سعادت ابدی دارد. Then human act was able to understand what impact, what positive impact prayer, fasting, pilgrimage to Mecca, giving alms and other religious obligations has on our perfection and reaching eternal happiness. Or on the other side, other hand, usury, I don't know, all the kinds of mischief which are prohibited, what type of impact they could have negative impact, they could have our perfection. So if we had enough knowledge, we would understand by ourselves. آنگاه بشر خود به خود و بدون امر و نهی خدای متعال واجبات را انجام میداد و از انجام محرمات پرهیز میکرد. Then we were able to understand what to do even without Allah telling us, what not to do even without Allah prohibiting us. But the problem is we don't have these information and data and wisdom. Then he says قوانین حقوقی اسلام هم از آنجا که بعضی از احکام شرعیه است از این قاعده مستثنا نیست. This is about all Sharia, all Islamic rulings, which as I said before, partly is about personal or individual rulings. This is not about حقوق, not about the law, but part of it is social, it's related. So Islamic law is part of Islamic Sharia, and therefore when we say ahkam tabi'atun lil masalih wal mafasid includes legal rulings. When we say al-wajibat al-shar'iyya al-tafun ila al-wajibat al-aqliyya, again includes those things which are about law. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala but has awareness, is fully aware that we are not unfortunately aware of those things, so he has sent prophets, messengers, revelations, books, codes of law, so that we understand. Otherwise it's all based on the realities and facts. کوتاه سخن, this is the conclusion. کوتاه سخن آن که دیدگاهی که ما بر اساس مبانی عقیدتی اسلامی خود در مسئله پشتوانه تکوینی یا داشتن یا نداشتن حقوق اتخاذ می کنیم این است که قوانین حقوقی همه اعتباری است ولی ریشه در واقعیات نفس الامری دارد و آن واقعیات مبانی حقوقند نه متن حقوق. So conclusion is this: based on our Islamic theology and our understanding that laws are based on realities, we say all the legal rulings are rooted in realities, but at the same time they need to be issued, introduced by someone who has authority, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because we said sometimes there is difference between sha'ni and fi'li. But these realities, which are the foundations, are not themselves part of the law. This is not the content of the law. This is the basis of the law. It's a foundation of the law. Law starts after them. It's not that includes them. Okay, Alhamdulillah, we finished also this discussion. The next discussions that we have, one is about legitimacy, which inshallah we will complete this discussion. Who can be the lawmaker, about social contracts and the view of people. What is their idea? What is our criticism about those who believe in natural law or intellectual law? And then inshallah after that we go to the issues about validity of the verdict or the judgment of the judge. So if you have any question, any comment, please share. And we can benefit, inshallah. I also shared with you the presentation I had last week, last Tuesday in Italy, but it's unlisted, just for your own benefit, inshallah. Still, it's not made public, so you can benefit yourself, inshallah, and share with me your comments.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. May Allah bless
you. Sorry, can I ask a question?
Please, yes.
Can we use our method in fiqh where we discover ahkam about, for example, salah? Can we use this method to discover law and rules? Because some believes that in fiqh, our purpose is just discovering and finding hujjah. And hujjah doesn't correspond to reality and interests and masalih necessarily. Sometimes it corresponds and sometimes it doesn't. So can we use fiqh to discover law and rules or not?
Yeah, because we don't have any better method. Even in ibadat, we don't have any better method for finding what is the reality. So we say, okay, in the absence of certain knowledge about realities of ahkam, we at least try to have hujjah. Is Friday prayer wajib or Salat al-Zuhr is wajib in the time of ghaibah? There is a reality. Can you hear me?
Sorry, there is a difference between ibadat and law, because in ibadat, the main purpose is to grow our relation between ourselves and God.
Even in huquq is the same.
To grow the society.
In huquq is the same. We said ultimate end is nearness to Allah. My question is, do you have any better method than fiqh?
So maybe we have to change the method. I don't know what's that method, but...
So how can we understand God's rulings about social life? We cannot say religion has nothing to say. Religion has lots of rulings. What's the best method available? The best method available is what we have in fiqh and usul. But sometimes it's ahkam fiqahati, sometimes ahkam ijtihadi, sometimes it's hukm waqi'i, sometimes it's hukm zahiri. First we try to understand what is hukm waqi'i, what's the real one, but in the absence of that, we at least try to understand what is our practical duty.
Thank you.
May Allah bless you, inshallah.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Can we say that our jurisprudence is our law?
Our jurisprudence includes our law, because law is only about social life. But our jurisprudence is more comprehensive. Even if you live alone, you are not in any society, still jurisprudence helps you and tells you what to do. احسنتم. التماس دعا.
جزاكم الله.
می الله خدا نگهدار.